All right, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the wild world of GameStop and all the crazy theories swirling around it.
Yeah.
We're talking about potential market manipulation, hidden ownership stakes,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards, stuff that could make even the most seasoned finance pros do a double take.
Oh, absolutely. And we're basing this deep dive on the sources you sent in, a whole bunch of Reddit posts that really dig into the nitty-gritty of what might be going on behind the scenes with GME. But got to be clear up front.
Always got to be.
These are theories and speculation, okay? Not necessarily hard facts, but they raise some really important questions about just how transparent our markets really are.
Yeah.
And how some folks might be using, let's say, creative financial tools to, well, maybe bend the rules a bit.
Exactly. And a lot of these theories center around some familiar faces and events.
Oh, yeah.
First one that jumps out, DFV.
Right.
a.k.a. Keith Gill, a.k.a. Roaring Kitty. The guy who, let's face it, became a legend during that whole GameStop explosion back in 2021. Now, some folks are saying he might be quietly amassing a gigantic stake in GME again.
Right.
Maybe even bigger than his original position.
And they think he might be doing it by, well, cleverly working within the SEC's filing rules.
Oh, interesting.
And using those shadowy dark pools to keep his moves hush-hush.
Okay, so let's break this down. First, those SEC filing deadlines.
Right.
Those deadlines can be different depending on what type of investor DFV is classified as, right?
Absolutely. If he's what they call a control intent investor, meaning he's looking to have a real say in how the company's run, then he's got a super tight window to report any stake over 5%, like 5 business days.
Wow, that's fast.
It is. But passive investors, they've got a bit more breathing room, especially when their holdings are going up and down.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's where things get spicy. And this is what's setting those Reddit threads on fire. Qualified institutional investors, or QIIs, they get a whole 45 days after the quarter ends to report a 5% stake.
Right.
And if they're above 10%, they report monthly.
Yeah. So if DFE's operating as a QII, he could be buying up tons of shares before anyone even knows what's happening.
Sneaky.
It is. And that's where those dark pools come in.
Dark pools. Explain those for the folks at home.
So dark pools are like these private exchanges where big players can make big trades without broadcasting it to the whole world.
So if you're buying up mountains of stock, you can do it on the down low.
Exactly. And those Reddit posts, they point to some pretty specific clues that might support this whole theory. Apparently, there were loads of 5,000 share block purchases happening in dark pools, especially between May 13th and June 17th.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that timing is super important because those buys happened right before those updated SEC filing deadlines went into full effect. It's almost like someone was trying to, use that little window of opportunity.
Just slip under the radar.
Exactly, to buy up shares without having to immediately tell everyone.
Okay, so I've got the QII theory and the dark pool activity. But to really kick this financial thriller up a notch, some people are saying that DFV might be taking inspiration from a movie, Run Lola Run, to guide his strategy.
I know it sounds wild.
It does.
But hear me out. In the movie, the main character keeps doubling down on bets, specifically on the number 20 on the roulette wheel.
Okay, I see where this is going.
And some people think this might be a hint that DFV's planning to double down on GME call options with a strike price of $20.
Interesting.
They even point to November 5th, 2024 as a potentially significant date.
Why that date?
Day after the U.S. presidential election.
Oh, I see.
They're thinking all the market craziness around the election could create like a smokescreen.
So DFV's moves could fly under the radar amidst all the chaos.
Exactly.
It's like a financial conspiracy theory dipped in a cinematic puzzle. But let's shift gears to something potentially even more unsettling.
Okay.
Remember those Brazilian put options on GME? The ones that just, poof, vanished back in 2021.
Oh, yeah, those were wild. Those put options represented millions of shares potentially, and their sudden disappearance, it raised a lot of eyebrows. Some folks said it was just a glitch.
A glitch, huh?
Yeah, but others, they think it was intentional, like a deliberate move to hide a massive short position on GME.
Okay. Time for a quick refresher. For those who might not be options experts, explain put options.
Sure. Put options, they basically let someone bet that a stock's going to go down.
So seeing those huge put options back in 2021, That was a big deal, especially with all the back and forth between the short sellers and the GME supporters.
It was, and here's where things get really complicated. The theory is that some big institutions might have used these fancy financial tools called swaps
Swaps.
to create synthetic ownership of GME.
Synthetic ownership.
Yeah, basically letting them short the stock without actually having a direct short position.
So they're using these convoluted tools to bet against GME without attracting as much attention. But how does that even work?
Okay, imagine this. A U.S. institution wants to short GME, but they don't want to raise any red flags.
Right.
They don't want to trigger any alarms with the regulators. So they could enter into what's called a total return swap with a foreign affiliate.
A total return swap.
Yeah. This basically shifts the risk and reward of the short position without actually shorting the shares directly. Then the foreign affiliate, they go and execute the trade, maybe even using those Brazilian put options as part of their strategy.
So they're going through this back channel to place their bet.
Right.
But wouldn't the U.S. institution want to, collect on that bet eventually?
Of course. And that's where the total return part comes in. They'd have a separate agreement with their foreign affiliate to get any profits made from the short position. So it creates this closed loop where the money flows right back to them.
Okay, that's pretty sneaky. But here's where I get lost.
Yeah.
What about Japanese bonds? The Reddit posts keep mentioning them.
Ah, that's a good question. And it's where things get even more twisty. Some theories say that Japanese bonds, which are known for being super stable and having low yields, might be used as collateral in these swap deals.
Okay, so these bonds are somehow backing up these complex bets against GameStop.
Potentially, yeah.
But why Japanese bonds specifically?
Well, remember, we're talking about a global network here. The theory goes that by using Japanese bonds as collateral, these institutions can access a huge pool of capital that's pretty much outside the reach of U.S. regulations.
There's like a financial fortress, shielding their moves from scrutiny.
You got it.
But what's the end goal here? What are they trying to accomplish with all this?
Well, the Reddit posts throw out a few possibilities. Some think these institutions are trying to tank the price of GameStop, maybe to cover their own short positions or to just profit from the drop. Others say they might be trying to create a liquidity crisis, forcing a massive sell-off that could trigger a chain reaction across the whole market.
That's a scary thought.
It is, but the thing is, the complexity of these swaps and the fact that they're happening all over the globe, it makes it incredibly tough for regulators to track what's going on, let alone step in and stop it.
So we have these institutions possibly using these incredibly complex and secretive financial tools to manipulate the market, and the regulators are struggling to keep up.
Yeah, it's not a great picture.
It's not. And remember that chilling quote from the Reddit posts, when fraud is the business, fines are just government premiums. It's like they're saying getting caught is just the cost of doing business.
Right. It's a disturbing thought.
It is. But if that's true, what can be done to address these systemic issues?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We desperately need more transparency in the financial markets. We need stricter enforcement of the rules we already have, and maybe even some new rules to tackle the specific risks these complex instruments pose.
And this is where you, the listener, come in. The more we understand about these issues, the more we can hold regulators and policymakers accountable.
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and accept these schemes as, like, the norm. We need to be vigilant. We need to ask tough questions, and we need to push for a financial system that's fair and transparent.
Well said.
All right, so we've covered a lot, but we've only just dipped our toes in.
Right.
Up next, we're going to tackle an even wilder theory, the GameStop swap theory.
Buckle up, everyone. This is going to be a wild ride.
Oh, yeah. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into GameStop and these crazy theories about potential market manipulation.
Yeah, before we go any further, got to reiterate, we're dealing with theories here, speculation,
Yeah.
not confirmed facts.
Exactly. Always important to remember that. But even if just a sliver of these theories is true, it paints a pretty unsettling picture of what might be happening in the markets.
Yeah, no kidding.
And this GameStop swap theory we're about to unpack, this takes things to a whole other level of complexity.
Okay, yeah. Give me a little recap here.
Sure.
Because GameStop swap, that sounds like, I don't know, a video game title or something.
Oh, I know, right?
Not a financial instrument.
So this sounds pretty wild. But let's start with those Brazilian put options we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Remember, they popped up out of nowhere, then vanished, leaving a lot of folks wondering if they were part of some bigger scheme to hide short positions on GME.
Right, and you explained how some institutions might be using swaps to create that synthetic ownership,
Right.
basically betting against GME without directly shorting the stock.
Exactly.
But how does that connect to this GameStop swap idea?
Well, the theory suggests that this web of swaps, it goes way beyond just a few institutions hiding their bets. It suggests a much bigger, more interconnected scheme, maybe even involving players in multiple countries.
Okay, so we're talking about a global network of, like, shadowy financial transactions,
Yeah, sure.
all designed to manipulate the price of GameStop.
They-
It sounds almost too crazy to be true.
I know. It does sound like something out of a conspiracy theory. But the Reddit posts, they make some compelling arguments, you know? They point to specific transactions, patterns of activity, even connections to some pretty obscure financial instruments that seem to back up this theory.
All right, you've piqued my curiosity, but I'm still stuck on the Japanese bonds.
Yeah.
Where do they fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and it's one that has a lot of people scratching their heads. The theory suggests that Japanese bonds, which are known for being really stable, low yields,
Huh?
they might be used as collateral in these swap arrangements.
Hold on, so these bonds are somehow backing up these complicated bets against GameStop.
That's the idea.
But why Japanese bonds in particular?
Well, remember, we're talking about a global network here. The theory suggests that using Japanese bonds as collateral allows these institutions to tap into this huge pool of capital that's pretty much untouchable by U.S. regulations.
So it's like a financial shield, protecting their activities from scrutiny?
Exactly.
But what's the end game? What are they ultimately trying to do?
Well, the Reddit posts offer up a few possibilities. Some people think these institutions are trying to drive down the price of GameStop, maybe to cover their own short positions
Right.
or just profit from the decline. Others think they might be trying to create a liquidity crisis, force a massive sell-off
Oh, wow.
that could trigger a domino effect across the whole market.
That sounds pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling. And here's the problem, right? The sheer complexity of these swaps and the fact that it's all happening globally, it makes it almost impossible for regulators to even understand what's going on,
Yeah.
let alone step in and stop it.
So we've got these institutions potentially manipulating the market with these incredibly complex and opaque tools,
Right.
and the regulators are playing catch-up.
That's a tough situation. And you know, we can't forget that quote from the Reddit post that when fraud is the business, fines are just government premiums.
Right.
Like they're saying getting caught is just the cost of doing business. It's a disturbing thought.
It is. But if that's true, what can we do? How do we fix this?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We desperately need more transparency, more sunlight on these financial markets. We need to make sure the existing rules are enforced. And we might even need some new rules specifically designed to address the risks posed by these complex instruments.
And this is where you, the listener, come in.
Exactly.
The more we understand about these issues, the more
Yeah.
we can hold those in power accountable.
We can't just sit back and accept these schemes as business as usual.
Right.
We have to be vigilant, ask tough questions, and push for a financial system that's truly fair and transparent.
Well said. We've covered a lot of heavy stuff here, but we're not done yet.
Not even close.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll discuss what all of this means for the future of the financial markets and, most importantly, what you, the listener, can do to protect yourself.
Stay tuned.
Right, welcome back for the final leg of our deep dive into the world of GameStop
Yeah.
and all these theories about market manipulation.
Right.
It's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
It really has. We've covered everything from DFV's mysterious moves to those Brazilian put options that vanished,
Right.
and of course that mind-boggling GameStop swap theory.
Yeah, and while we've been focusing on GameStop specifically, these theories, they bring up some bigger questions
They do.
about how stable and how fair the entire financial system really is.
Absolutely. It's not just about one stock anymore. It's about how these complex financial tools could be used to mess with the markets and
Yeah.
hurt regular investors.
And one thing that really stands out through all of this is this lack of transparency.
Oh, for sure.
These swaps, dark pools, foreign affiliates,
Yeah.
they create this tangled web of transactions
myth.
that's almost impossible to untangle.
Exactly. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces are missing.
Yeah.
And the ones you do have are constantly changing shape.
It makes it incredibly difficult for regulators to keep an eye on things and make sure everything's fair.
It does.
So it's like we've built this incredibly sophisticated financial system,
yeah.
but we don't have the tools or maybe even the will to actually understand how it works,
The problem.
let alone prevent it from being abused.
It is a problem. It raises questions about whether regulators even have the resources
Right.
or the authority to oversee these complex instruments,
Yeah.
and whether there's enough political will to challenge the status quo.
Especially when you consider the potential conflicts of interest,
Right.
where institutions might be putting profits ahead of...
It's not transparency or stability. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and the GameStop saga has really exposed those vulnerabilities in our financial system
It has.
and highlighted the need for more transparency and accountability.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to trust.
Trust is everything.
Trust in the markets, trust in the institutions,
Yeah.
trust that the system is fair and transparent.
And that trust has taken a hit,
Well-
you know? After the 2008 financial crisis, the lack of transparency from some institutions and the rise of all these complex financial instruments,
Right.
it's left a lot of people feeling like the system is rigged against them.
So what can we do about it? How do we fix this and restore trust in the markets?
Well, it's a tough question, but it starts with recognizing there's a problem.
Yeah.
We have to demand more transparency and accountability from those in charge.
We need to shine a light on those dark corners of finance.
Exactly.
And really understand how these tools are being used and who's actually benefiting.
We need reforms that prioritize stability.
Transparency over short-term profits and unnecessary complexity.
I know it can feel overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with concepts like swaps and dark pools.
Right.
But remember, your voice matters.
It does.
Stay informed, talk to your elected officials,
Yeah.
and support organizations that are fighting for a fairer and more transparent financial system.
It's crucial to remember that the future of our financial system depends on people being informed and engaged.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and demand answers.
That's how we make a difference.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of GameStop
Yeah.
and the theories surrounding its potential market manipulation.
We covered a lot of ground,
We did.
explored some complex concepts, and hopefully gave you a better understanding of what's at stake here.
Absolutely. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
And remember, knowledge is power.
Always.
The more we understand about these complex financial instruments and how the markets really work, the better equipped we are to navigate this landscape and protect ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Stay curious, stay informed,
Yeah.
and most importantly, stay engaged.